into game number 1 here, and we're actually starting off with Draven, Ezreal, and discard aggro. So we've seen just so much Viego and Sivir and Akshan. We're finally getting to see some oldie but goodie decks here, decks that we are very familiar with: Boulevard, discard aggro, and Draven Ezreal. And I gotta say, I think this match is generally favored for the Draven Ezreal player.
Yeah, we know that Draven Ezreal does very well against unit-based aggro decks. And while there's a little bit of burn in the form of rockets and get excited, like there's no decimates, there's no Noxian fervors. So ultimately, as long as Wasrusso can sort of stave off a little bit of the aggression in the early game, which we should be able to do here with either the Zonite Urchin or the Ballistic Bot, however we want to play this out. And actually, Zonite Urchin, not something that we often see here, but I don't hate it. You know, we did lose Rummage, so it makes sense that we want to find some additional ways to take advantage of the axes and the Boom Baboon Flame Chompers that we're getting, as well as these ignitions.
And this is a hard decision. Okay, a little bit of a different route from what you were talking about with the Ballistic Bot and the Zonite Urchin. I do like it. It still prevents 2 damage, but it doesn't get you to kind of awkwardly commit the Ballistic Bot or the Zonite Urchin into either taking too much damage on the Ballistic Bot, only blocking the Scuttler, or discarding something that you actually want with the Zonite Urchin. And I do like this. We're going to get an Ignition. We will get some more draw with the Zonite Urchin. And I think as long as we can survive, you know, until, I was going to say until turn 8 for Captain Farron, but it looks like we're actually going to be discarding that, staying lower to the ground here. And Ezreal, actually going to be a really big pickup if we could start to generate some Mystic shots. And another Farron off the top, just coming right back.
So this is actually very different from a lot of the Draven Ezreal decks that we see. For starters, you know, there's 3 Zonite Urchin, and I was kind of talking about, oh yeah, you know, you play these because you don't play Rummage anymore. Nope, we still play Rummage. And we also play 3 Get Excited. We don't play Boom Baboon, so even though we've jam-packed a lot more discard payoff into the deck, we haven't actually added more like discard targets. And there's actually a very small amount of 3-cost cards in this list comparative to what we normally see.
Yeah, and I do imagine with no cards being committed, Wasrusso setting up for the Get Excited, utilizing that Ignition. No need to play the Sump Dredger this turn. It would have given us a blocker, but I think that getting rid of the Draven is probably more of a priority here. You're still saving actually a little bit more damage if you wanted to actually utilize the Sump Dredger to block something like the Zonite Urchin. So it's going to work out well. We're going to get another Ignition, cycle a little bit with the Sump Dredger, I imagine, this turn. And actually are going to be able to, if possible, ooh, this is interesting. We can get down Ezreal. Okay, yeah, it looks like we're going to do Ezreal to start generating those Mystic shots.
And I think this is actually kind of nice for Wasrusso, because while the crowd favorite does come off the top for Kochua, it's only going to have 5 HP if it comes down right now, which means that the Mystic Shot and the Get Excited on the following turn will kill that. And once that happens, there's not a lot of power left on Kochua's board, but it's really going to come down to, you know, what comes out of this
Augmented Experimenter.
Because if the crowd favor comes down, yeah, that's actually going to perfectly float 3 mana into the next turn, so we can still Get Excited and play the Augmented Experimenter. We might just Get Excited this Ezreal right here, right now.
Yeah, let's see. It's this always connects, so unfortunately not getting one of those Daring Poros down. But yeah, it looks like there it is. There's the Get Excited onto the Ezreal. And that means
that's really scary.
Yeah, this means that this crowd favorite is likely going to be able to connect here. Looks like we're going to get we're still getting excited in a crowd favorite. Okay.
I don't mind this per se, in that we are really telegraphing that we want to use the Ignition on the following turn for something else. In this case, of course, the only payoff that we see is Sump Dredger. But that's a lot of damage that's going to be pushed through. Near lethal. Okay, we're actually going for the Augmented Experimenter first. You know, punishable by an Arachnoid Sentry, but that's not something that we actually see available to Wasrusso.
Yeah, I
really liked that open attack.
This looks terrible for Wasrusso now. And the Thermo Beam off the top makes it feel even worse that you committed to Get Excited to the crowd favorite, because that has its name written all over it. And even you can see Wasrusso floating it and then deciding not to use it, but you kind of have to. Right? Like, I mean, I guess the next best play would probably be the Sump Dredger here. Just to at least get the cycle. Well, if you Sump Dredger,
you lose.
Is that enough damage for game?
Yeah, there's a the little Flame Chompers who could gonna pull everything to the side.
Oh, yeah,
Push through about 13 damage.
Yeah, that is gonna be lethal. So I think so you you have to thermo beam there. And yeah, this
If the Sump Dredger had drawn Mystic Shot or Get Excited, we'd have a game on our hands, but that's just not the case. And unfortunately, things not working out for Wasrusso, unable to stop everything from happening in a timely fashion, drawing a lot of the discard payoffs, but no Draven, I think, really played against Wasrusso, as well as getting down the Ballistic Bot a little bit later than they wanted to because they had to commit the Thermo Beam on 2.
Yeah, that was, I'm not gonna lie, that was really unfortunate. Seeing that for Wasrusso there just didn't really seem like the ideal hand going up against discard aggro. Couldn't really go wide enough to get enough units, didn't really have any removal. Would have been nice to have something like, I don't know, a Static Shock. Never got something like that. So Kochua, another quick, just game up here in the semifinals, on their way to potentially a finals showing in their first OLS. This is pretty nice. This is pretty awesome to see, Boulevard. I'm kind of rooting for Kochua here. No offense to Wasrusso or anything, but always good to see such a good run here from a newcomer.
Well, we're going to run it back. We're going to try again, this time up against the Draven Ezreal, which means that it was the Sivir Akshan that we decided to ban on the side of Wasrusso. And actually, looking at the time on the clock here, still 43 minutes remaining. That was a really fast game 1.
Yeah, that was actually really fast. I mean, I guess it's discard aggro, right? So it doesn't surprise me too much.
Yeah.
So Kochua now having to take on Draven Ezreal with, well, we've seen it all day. We're seeing it again. Zoe, Lee Sin, especially just Lee Sin himself, we've seen all day. But
yeah. So this is a really greedy build out of Wasrusso, right? We have an insane amount of discarding cards like Zonite Urchin and Some Dredger and Get Excited, packing in 3 copies of all of those, and really only Draven and Ballistic Bot as our payoffs for it. We're not playing Boom Baboon, we're not playing Chump Wump. We didn't put that back in the deck, and I think in total it's like 6 things that generate cards for us to discard, and something like 13 cards that require things to be discarded because Rummage is still in this list.
Yeah, Rummage. What's your thoughts on Rummage? I mean, is it? I mean, it's still playable, right? But
yeah,
just seems.
I don't think I'd
worse.
play it with Zonite Urchin. I think Time Trick is actually a really cool card for this deck because you have the possibility of like sniping a Tri-Beam Impropulator out of your deck, which, if you can find that in a timely fashion, makes a world of difference.
Oh, you mean a card that works with 3-cost cards like we see in the hand of Wasrusso right now? I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And we do see one Tri-Beam Improbulator in hand, so that is going to work quite nicely with the collection of 3-cost cards that we have here. Yeah. So I think Wasrusso is in a decent spot. However, it's really hard to say who's in the lead in a Lee Sin matchup specifically, if it's Lee Sin versus literally any deck, because Lee Sin can go down to 1 health. It could come all the way back up from the depths of beyond, from almost being just completely killed really early on in the game to winning the game. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give this to anybody yet. I think that Kochua, even though we don't have Eye of the Dragons, I mean, maybe that's the one thing to kind of target here is, okay, no Eye of the Dragons early. Maybe that's going to be a disadvantage, but instead we get a Zoe early. So Zoe's going to do a lot to deal with this board as well.
And very critically, no Mystic Shot onto the Zoe, even though it was available from Wasrusso, saying, I actually don't really care about the Celestial generation that you're going to be doing. I don't really care that you're getting spells towards your Lee Sin level up. I don't really care that you're spending a pretty high amount of mana comparative to what you're getting, especially when things have been nerfed out of that pool, specifically the Serpent, which was never phenomenal against Draven Ezreal anyway. There's not a lot of 2 HP units in this deck. Pretty much everything hits a 3, but making a very conscious effort. They're just saying, I don't care about Zoe, which we'll see if it comes back to bite them.
All right, getting that Crescent Strike. So this completely, not completely, but for the most part, shuts down this turn. That's a pretty big attack that was coming in otherwise.
I think it's actually pretty important that we were able to stop that because Wasrusso, as we had mentioned, pretty greedy Draven Ezreal list. You deny an axe by stunning out that Draven.
Yeah. And
okay, now we're gonna Mystic. Okay, now we're gonna Mystic Shot Zoe.
It's a little. I mean,
a little weird.
I follow me here. I mean, maybe it's because you wanted them to commit the additional mana on the super cool star chart. I mean, I don't see that really being too impactful, but that's really the only consideration I could think of, to not Mystic Shotting it right away to prevent the Crescent Strike. But hey,
Maybe we forgot about Crescent Strike, and we were like, what are you going to do with that? We got Crescent
Possibly.
Strike once, and we said, you know what, never mind.
Yeah.
I hate this. Maybe just wanting to clear the way for the Ezreal. I'm not 100% sure because we had that available on the previous turn, but going to move on past that. And Kochua, now that we have the Eye of the Dragon developed, we're still looking for Lee Sin.
Yeah, it looks like we are going to slowly try to set up this Eye of the Dragon to be killed as well. So 1 damage going on it. We do eventually have that Pale Cascade kind of hanging out in hand there for Kochua. We also have the Guiding Touch to heal now that there's a little bit of damage onto the Eye of the Dragon, to heal the Eye of the Dragon. So that might be something that potentially blows out a play from Wasrusso in the future if, Ezreal Nexus Strike, or, okay, I was going to say Ezreal Nexus Strike with Mystic Shot, but Scorched Earth is just as good. So that's going to work out really nicely.
Yeah. Find another Zoe. We have a Hush. We've got some okay tools, but we don't have Lee Sin. And, we talked about it a lot yesterday where the hallmark of a Lee Sin player used to be, how can you win without Lee Sin? How good are you at doing that? But now with these builds just being Eye of the Dragon, you really can't win without Lee Sin. You're really stuck on just stalling out until you get that card. Mm-hmm. But Eye of the Dragon is a pretty effective tool against Draven Ezreal. The 3 HP is a little bit difficult for them to deal with, especially since we discarded a Get Excited already to a Sump Dredger earlier on in the game. And now, Ezreal's not going to take it out. We can't attack with this Sump Dredger. A lot of aggression is turned off.
Well, we do have a Captain Farron that's looking to come down on turn 8, which is nice. There is the Hush and Concussive Palm, so there's ways for Kochua to deal with it, at least on the first couple attacks.
This is so enticing for Wasrusso. Kochua has 10 cards in hand. If you just take the pass, Kochua overdraws. Mm-hmm. And you're pretty sure Kochua doesn't have a Lee Sin.
You just got really excited over that. I guess the potential of burning a Lee Sin feels really good, but that definitely could be a consideration. I don't think the potential to burn a Lee Sin, though, is better than being aggressive and potentially pushing damage, especially with this Ezreal. So, because they could pass back and then just now you lose the attack token for the turn. So, I do like Wasrusso not passing there, especially knowing that we will have possibly a Farron open attack heading into turn 9 with the attack token. But the Hush coming out now, taking care of the Ezreal, which means, and now the Concussive Palm's down. Captain Farron open attacking into turn 9 seems much better. There is the Lee Sin. Oh, of course it was on the top.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, you never take this pass because the chances of them burning a Lee Sin are astronomically low, and then you see them draw the Lee Sin, and you have to understand that it's still correct not to take the pass there, because if it was anything other than a Lee Sin, you would have felt pretty weird. But not only did we not take the pass to burn a Lee Sin, this combat did not go nearly as good as we wanted it to.
Yeah, we're only pushing 4 damage, and unfortunately that Ezreal not going to get the Mystic Shot, but I still think it went okay though. We're getting rid of this Eye of the Dragon, which is going to feel really nice, because that's literally, that is the problem. We've seen this deck a million times now, Boulevard. The problem is Eye of the Dragon. That's the problem, and then Lee Sin eventually. But it's Eye of the Dragon. So now, if we're able to get down this Farron, yeah, especially after a Lee Sin's committed, if we can get down this Farron going into an open attack, I think that's going to feel pretty good. Lee Sin could potentially trade with it with some attack boost, though, on the block. With that barrier, so that's going to feel bad from Wasrusso.
Well, the Lee Sin's leveled, so even if we just kick the Farron back to the hand, 8 mana to generate 2 Decimates is not something anybody wants to do, as well as get 10 damage pushed onto them.
Yeah, if it does go back, though, having 4 Decimates essentially represents lethal, but I think that over the next 2 turns, Kochua would also have lethal with 2 Sonic Waves in hand, so...
Yeah.
Oh, actually,
and it looks like we were going for the Ezreal, kind of hoping that one spell would come down, we could, our Ezreal would get challenged, we would sacrifice it, whatever. I've got the Thermogenic Beam available still, but because of the kick, we're not even going to pop the barrier. The Thermo Beam not going to be able to go down onto the Lee Sin, and I think JDoza Kochua might be looking at another 2-0 here in the semifinals.
It's looking like it. We've seen Lee Sin just be so damn consistent all during day 1. It's doing well here again during the top cut. It definitely seems like it's the deck to beat right now. And what's this at? Oh, wow. That's pretty big, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And we
it's
low
not-
rolled.
and we
We
low
get
rolled it.
the worst possible 8 drops in terms of stats on play effect.
Oh man.
Tiana Crown Guard might have actually just like ended the game right there,
Actually, yeah. What?
but instead we get Riptide Rex.
I mean, this pushes 4. It looks like we're not opting for the Farron. And too much of a mana commitment there. This does get a couple spells out, possibly.
I'm thinking of all the cool 8 drops we could have hit. I'm talking Captain Farron. I'm talking the Dreadway. I'm talking Tiana Crown Guard.
Mhm.
And I feel like overwhelmingly we're seeing just Riptide Rexes pop out of the 8 drop slot.
It wants to remind us that he's back, sort of. I mean, there's some plunder
I was
decks
about to
I've
say,
seen.
you better put sort of or kind of or in some spaces at the end.
I've seen him around. He gets around a little bit. You know, he shows up here and there. But, yeah, now, there's a consideration to make here, though, that we kind of have to take some sort of damage here. And that means we have to commit spells to even block and keep our Lee Sin healthy. And now we are within the 2 decimate range.
Yes.
And right now, Lee Sin, I don't think if both. Hold on, I'm trying to think of what his attack is going to be at. We might not have enough attack next turn.
If we double Zenith Blade, we have enough attack. He'll be at 6.
Oh, okay, yeah, if we play both of them, okay. And there's no way I don't think and then that's going to be, that elusive damage even is going to be enough. So close. I mean, Wasrusso has sort of the ability to close out. I don't know if we play actually the Tri-Beam here, though, to kill this Zoe, thinking, okay, maybe we have to go all in on hoping that Kochua doesn't have any additional attack buffs for the Lee Sin, but
I could definitely see throwing down the Farron here because Kochua didn't play Zenith Blade last turn. You know, had the chance for the overwhelm, instead went for the double spells to clear out a couple of things. If you think that Kochua doesn't have Zenith Blade, then you're probably not dying to a Zoe and a Lee Sin from 11. Maybe you have the time to get this down. If you top deck a Mystic Shot, then you can play a Decimate when they do play the Zenith Blade. If they do have it, finish them off with a Mystic Shot when they go in for the attack. Of course, Kochua does have a lot of protection in hand between this Deny as well as the Guiding Touch. I don't think Wasrusso is going to be able to top deck their way out of this one.
Yeah, really unfortunate. So close. Just not enough time to play these Decimates in hand. And I imagine we're going to see, yep, there's the Shen emote. The open attack with the Lee Sin is going to come through. And because of it, Wasrusso clicking the surrender button, and Kochua with a second straight 2-0 victory, making it to the finals of OLS number 29.